Hello, hello. This is Corey Thompson from Dice Tower Now, Above Board, and Dice Tower Dish.
And this is the Podfather of gaming, Stephen Bonacore. You are listening to Board Games Insider episode 281, and we're recording this on June 21st, 2023. Board Games Insider is a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. And you know who takes care of their fans, Corey? We do. So,
We do.
at Dice Tower East on Saturday, July 8th at noon, we will have a Board Games Insider meetup, as we have for several years. Ignacy and I will be there. Sadly, no Corey. And there will be pizza, beer, soda, water, maybe a Crokinole championship. And of course, who doesn't do this kind of stuff for their fans? Should I even mention his name? Tom Bass. So without even getting a full okay from Ignacy. Oh, Ignacy couldn't be here today. He should have been on this episode, but he had a family matter, and not a good one. He his daughter's dance or something like that. It was really kind of cute.
That's awesome.
So I tried to clear it with him because we was like, hey, we got to plan this thing if we're going to do it. So we did it last time, and we usually do it on Saturdays at noon. So Saturday, July 8th, noon. That's at Dice Tower East. Please come again. It'll be in that same location, which is by the main building. If you're looking at it from the central area on the left or right hand side, you'll find us. But by the main building, it's a great time. Sadly, Corey can't be here for this. I really thought you would be here, the three of us in one location, but it doesn't work out for this year.
It was a really difficult decision. I've done so many conventions, and I had a great opportunity to go to Origins for the first time, which is where I'm recording from right now. And I would have to fly from West Coast to East Coast to West Coast to East Coast to West Coast. It would be too much. Something had to give.
Yeah,
this is the first one I've missed, and I feel terrible.
And it's funny, and this is the first Origins I've missed, except for the weird COVID ones, of course.
Oh yeah.
And I normally go, but I had so much travel. We'll get into that. Where I've been, what I've been doing, and we've talked about it. So, but right now, Corey Thompson, what is happening in your world?
I am Corey Thompson. So Above Board is going strong. We have a lot of great videos. Just got to put my plug in there. We've got a couple videos cresting 10, 15,000 views. Our newest one is a series of hard to pronounce games. Our intern Curtis is failing miserably at pronouncing a bunch. One older title from Stronghold even, but I won't spoil that one.
I know that one. It's great. Go check that out. It's a great video about hard to pronounce games.
I love it. And then, like I said, I'm currently at Origins, so hopefully I'll get to see some people and say some hellos. This is my first Origins. I'm really excited, and it was initiated in a proper Bonacore manner. Last night I was taken out to Wolf's Ridge Brewing. Fantastic selection of beers, and I'm going to say the most unusual beer I've ever had. This was Astronaut Food Peach from Urban Artifact. And it tasted like a thick smoothie. It was so peachy. It did not taste like alcohol. It did not taste like beer. It tasted like a smoothie.
That's a new thing in beer styles. They call milkshake beers. That doesn't mean there's milk. Doesn't mean there's milk in them. But they kind of blend this huge amount of fruitiness and adding it in. It's not like it's from the esters of the yeast and stuff. They're like adding in this and making it a little thicker on the palate and stuff like that. It's one of the many trends.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was delicious. It was sweet. It was lovely. And I'm drinking it thinking this has no alcohol in it at all. And at the end of a very small glass, I was
feeling good.
It was 15% knocked me on my butt.
I bet you, because I know this place, I bet you were with a certain friend of ours. Should I even mention her name? Marion. I guarantee it because I know she loves this place, right? Am I right?
She has taken it upon herself to be my tour guide for Origins, since I've never done Origins. So we had pretzels and pierogies and beer, and it was lovely with the entire Gen Con event and organization group. It was a really fun evening.
That's awesome.
So finally, last minute news, someone quite special may be hosting some of the award presentations at Gen Con for the Dice Tower. I'm not going to say who, but it's a delightful, freshly shaven guy. So
Wow. So they've tapped you to do
they
this?
tapped me. I know they never tapped me for anything, but they've tapped
That's interesting.
me.
Is I don't even know what to say. Is that why not Tom? Why not, one of the main
I
guys there?
suspect there's going to be a whole bunch of us, and I'm going to be one of many in kind of an Oscars style presentation.
That's very cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
So I am excited about that. I'm looking forward to Gen Con.
So this is the first time that the Dice Tower Awards will be presented at Gen Con. In fact, our
Yes.
friend Marion, who does a lot of the events there, in charge of a lot of the events, she approached the Dice Tower to try to get them, and they created a deal, and it was great. So,
And it sounds
that's
like
really
it's all
cool.
going forward. So I'm excited about that. So
Very, very, very cool.
what's been going on with you, my friend?
Well, thank you for that toss over there, Dr. Thompson. Here,
I'm a professional.
you are a professional something. This is true. So I finally had 2 weeks off from my travel, and I mean, literally, let's just think about this for a moment. The reason that I'm not at Origins right now is because I traveled essentially 3 of the 4 weeks of June. I was at
Yeah.
the UKGE for almost a week. I was in Vegas for almost a week. So you get a few days in there we can pull out. Then I had a week and a half off here where I could have flown out a little bit and missed the end of Origins, because this coming Sunday, which would be the Sunday of Origins, the last day, I have to fly out with Paula. We're going on BGG at sea. So we're flying to
Yay.
Seattle. And that's just going to be amazing. So it's going to Alaska, BGG at sea, Alaska. We're on the week 1. I would have considered even doing 2 weeks on this cruise because it's so good. And there's actually different ports that slightly different. Not there's like one different port between week 1, I think, and week 2 on this cruise. By the way, it's so popular, the BGG at sea Alaska cruise, that they have to do 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They can't do it in 1 week. They would have too big of a group. So they're doing it in 2 weeks. I'll be on week 1. If you'll be there, make sure we get to game, have a drink, have a meal or something like that. I'm so excited because if there's one cruise that you should do in your life, and a lot of people say like, well, if there's one cruise you should do in life, you should come on Podfather the cruise, which is the Hawaii cruise, which I announced. But okay, that's really the Alaska cruise. Like, this is the one cruise you absolutely should do. It's stunningly beautiful. I've never been on a Hawaii cruise, so that is also going to be stunningly beautiful. So I'll be able to compare the two. But it's amazing what you see when you're on a cruise and you're hitting these ports in Alaska. Bald eagles, which are, I'll say, rare, around the continental U.S. I've seen them actually here in Florida, but very like once up Cape Canaveral, because they have like a nesting area there. I've seen them in New Jersey on cameras. They have little cameras on like the nests when they're giving birth. In Alaska, they're like pigeons. I mean, they are all over the place. You'll see them as you're just driving around in the bus. They're on the top of telephone poles. Amazing. We're going to one place that has the largest bear population in the world. And
Wow.
once we get there, we're going in, it's called Huna, is the island, and that's the Native American Eskimo, whatever. Sorry, I apologize. I don't know what the proper term is. That the name of the port is called Icy Point Strait, and when we go there on the excursion, we get into a Jeep and we travel inland, on dirt roads, and apparently bears are all over the place. I can't wait. I don't know. I've seen bears up close, but not that often. Maybe once in my life. So lots of gaming going to happen on that cruise, and that will be then followed by the Dice Tower East convention, where we'll do that BGI meetup. Stay tuned for any details that come up. We'll put them on Twitter for you. We'll put them on the Facebook group, but assume Saturday of Dice Tower East, July 8th at noon. Pizza and hanging out and having a good time and talking to other BGI listeners. And Corey,
Fantastic. How
and
cool.
Corey, where are we going from here? We're going to the event deck. All right. So the
Ooh.
first thing we have in the event deck is interesting. So, Magic the Gathering, of course, is tremendously popular, and they are now like literally within the next day. I think it might be like this week, like Friday, that Lord of the Rings set of Magic cards is coming out
Yeah.
officially. Hopefully I'll get it so that I can take it on the cruise with me and check it out. But they've just announced, and this was delayed. They haven't had one of these since the beginning of COVID, that they're having a $100,000 open Magic the Gathering tournament in a new limited format competitive event for their convention series. So it's going to happen at MagicCon Las Vegas, which takes place September 22nd to 24th of this year at the Las Vegas Convention Center. So MagicCon itself is huge. If you can fill up, be part of the Las Vegas Convention Center, which is one of the largest convention centers in the world. It hosts CES, the Consumer Electronics
Yeah.
Show, which is just tremendous. Car shows, it's big. It's like one of the biggies. They've announced they're coming back together again to do this open tournament. And also they're going to be doing their $1 million finals tournament. So if you're a Magic player or you're getting back into Magic, I think this is the place to be. And one of the reasons I'm also mentioning this at this moment is because the World Series of Board Gaming is going on at
Yes.
exactly the same time as this, plus a few days. I believe we start on the 23rd and run to the 28th. So I'm thinking about flying out maybe even a day early just to check out how they run such a big scale event as a Magic event in general, but a tournament
That's
like this,
very
because
cool.
obviously the World Series of Board Gaming is all about tournaments as well.
Now, there's no association between the two events, correct?
No, between the World Series of Board Gaming and
And the
MagicCon,
Magic.
no, it's
Wow.
completely serendipitous that they're both there at the same time, and kind of exciting. I mean, I'm excited that who knows, maybe we could even cross promote and stuff. Again, the World Series of Board Gaming. I am on the board of directors as an unpaid just advisor, but and that happened
Sure.
recently. So this is just pretty cool to me.
That's fascinating.
Steve Jackson Games has announced their sales for the last couple of years in a recent report. Now,
They've been so open for as long as I can remember, where they do give actual numbers on all their stuff.
right,
It's really fascinating to read.
we talk about this all the time that almost every company in our industry is a privately held company. Therefore, you do not publish numbers, so you don't have to publish numbers. However, Steve Jackson Games, Stonemaier Games are a couple of companies that specifically put out their
Yep.
sales and profitability figures all the time. For whatever reason they want to do that, they do it. That's their own business. So the information that they put out here is that Steve Jackson Games increased sales and expanded its direct-to-consumer and direct-to-retailer sales initiatives, the company said in its report to stakeholders in 2022. Gross sales were over 4.7 million in 2022, up from 3.7 million in 2021 and 4 million in 2020, but down from the 5.3 million in 2019. So
Pre-COVID.
they are showing that they are on an uptrend, which is very nice. Now, they have been higher than this in the past. They were over 6 million, I believe, slightly before this. So they had trended down and now have done better, as they're coming out of COVID. So I'm very happy for them about that. They did mention that two of the company's top 5 products by dollar volume were special Kickstarter releases. The Car Wars 6E Double Ace Box is one of them. The Munchkin Deluxe was their number 2 biggest seller by dollar volume. Steve
Yeah.
Jackson's Munchkin Presents Batman Kickstarter bundle. Okay, that was the second Kickstarter one. That was their number 3 by dollar volume. Girl Genius RPG, and then
Yeah, by
Munchkin itself.
Phil and Katya Kofoglio. Yeah.
This is interesting. All right. So
I'm fascinated because Car Wars sitting at number one. Traditionally, when Steve Jackson puts out their list of the top games, 19 out of 20 are in Munchkin.
so
And this is a cool list.
it is a really different list. So, and I'm assuming here that they're broken out the Munchkin products a little bit because they do have
Yes, they
Munchkin
usually list
Deluxe.
them individually.
They have Munchkin Deluxe listed in the number 2 slot, and then Munchkin in the 5 slot. So therefore,
Right.
they're saying this is by dollar volume of sales. So their Car Wars 6th edition double ace box, that one product, had the largest dollar volume of sales, and it was huge. I got it, I backed it, and I got this brick sitting in my Calyx right now, literally one full Calyx shelf brick. So
So it's a bigger, more dollar value game, which influences it towards higher on the dollar value list. But
exactly.
still, every year it's just been 19 out of 20 Munchkin games. So this is great that there's some more variety in their list.
Very, very cool indeed. So in the UK that I just came back from, they
Were you
have
in the UK?
announced that there are British postal stamps that feature Warhammer for the 40th anniversary of Warhammer. Games Workshop properties have reached a new benchmark of cultural prominence in their home country of the United Kingdom, where the Royal Mail Service has issued a series of postage stamps honoring the company's key brands in honor of Warhammer's 40th anniversary. 10 stamps have been issued. 6 feature miniatures from Warhammer 40K, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and Warhammer The Old World. Characters featured include Space Marines, Orcs, Stormcast Eternals, High Elves, Slaves to Darkness, and Dwarves. Wow. In the US, the Postal Service has taken a less geek-friendly approach with its game stamps, issuing stamps commemorating Monopoly in 1998. So boo to the US Postal Service, yay to our friends at the Royal Mail of the UK. So I just thought this was
That's fantastic.
absolutely.
I don't know if you heard the news that Hasbro has announced Scrabble Monopoly.
No, Scrabble Monopoly. So
I
it's,
don't think no more detail is needed. That's all you need to know. Scrabble Monopoly.
you know, yeah, and it's perfect amount of detail for me to say, leave it on the shelf. Just pass it
Scrabble
by.
Monopoly.
Pass it by. So just when you thought it was safe to come out of the water,
Oh,
literally at the ports on the West Coast and the East Coast, yes, there is a labor action that has shut down the West Coast port terminals. I
that's what
do
we need
not
is more
know.
shipping issues.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We just to remind everybody, at various points over the last several years, we've had all kinds of problems at the ports where things couldn't get in, labor actions, slowdowns due to extra inspections. It was crazy. So many times, container prices going from 5,000 to 45,000, just insane things. And now, guess what? We have another one. And I don't know if this has been resolved yet. I would hope it has been. So just to read this to you, the workers at the West Coast ports staged an informal labor action beginning on Friday, and this was back in the early part of June, that caused shutdowns at terminals at major ports and slowdowns at others as negotiations continue on a new contract between port operators and the International Longshoremen Warehouse Union. The Pacific Maritime Association, which represents West Coast port operators, released a statement on Friday reporting the action. Today, the ILWU is staging concerned and disruptive work actions that have effectively shut down port operations at some marine terminals at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. So, to also mention to people, those are the 2 biggest ports in the country, I believe. If not,
Yeah.
certainly Long Beach is right there as being the very big for board games coming in from China. And
Yeah, they're
obviously we know.
huge.
So you either depending on where you want your games to be put, you either come into Long Beach and then rail them to a central location or wherever your warehouse is. Very few people warehouse on the West Coast. Or you go around South America and you bring them. I believe that's the way we do it for China. We go around South America and you bring them over to the East Coast and end up at now I'm forgetting all of a sudden. Wow, my mind goes. Savannah, Port Savannah on the East Coast of Georgia. And then that's where
Yeah.
we took them and we brought them over to the PSI warehouse in Georgia. And many people obviously do that. So this, I'm sure, is not going on because it was an informal thing just to show people, hey, you got to listen to us because we could shut you down. So
Yeah.
let's keep an eye on how that continues to play out. A very short piece of news here, but I wanted to bring this one up, is because even the big guys in our industry, Asmodee, needs sales help on occasion. And Asmodee signed with Rep Group for nationwide sales, but not for all their sales, only a small portion. Asmodee USA has signed an agreement with Rep Group, Diverse Marketing, Rep Group Diverse Marketing for nationwide sales to the toy and gift channel in the US. So that's a very specific one, right? So that's one that most hobby game companies don't get into easily, and
And
only certain portions of
I
your
wasn't
sales can go
aware
there.
how involved Asmodee was with the gift market. So that's more a Hasbro kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, do you know much about this market at all, and really like what
Only from
products
the
go there?
Hasbro side,
Okay.
I know that there's been a big trend recently of a lot of hobby game companies wanting to target toy and mass market. And likewise, a lot of the mass market companies like Hasbro are wanting to target hobby game more. So there's crossover going on. There's a potential there for a lot of sales. But I had not heard about Asmodee specifically targeting the toy market at all. Now, Asmodee does a ton of different things. They have a book division, they have a media division, they have all this stuff that we just never hear about. So this is probably just a blind spot in my vision of what Asmodee does rather than any truth.
I mean, when you're a $3+ billion company, and you've got things that can fit, some of their stuff from their Zygomatic
Sure.
imprint brand, Doppel, there's smaller
Double
things,
spot it.
and Spot It, right? There's these
Now,
little almost toy-like
interestingly,
games. Go
yeah,
ahead.
it was just announced today that there's a new version of Dobble called Pancake Anarchy, I believe is the name of it, that Exploding Kittens is doing, and Exploding Kittens is part of Asmodee.
Okay. Very, very interesting on that one. Okay. So, Corey, the next one is all on you. Alexander Pfister has a video game.
Yeah, so Alexander Pfister, one of my favorite board game designers, of
And what
course,
has he
he's
designed, Corey?
done Great Western Trail, and he's done Maracaibo and Boone Lake. He's all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So he announced on Twitter that he has entered the video game market. So there's his first PC game is called Demon Loop. He's been working on it for 2 years. It's described as a turn-based loop and deck building adventure and strategy game. It is available right now on Steam with their early access program. It will be released soon for about $15. Looking at it, it has that puzzly element that you sort of expect, but it's also got kind of a Japanese anime kind of look to it, almost like a Japan RPG. So I haven't played it, but I think it's really interesting of the crossovers here. There's other designers that either started in video games. Scott Rogers started with THQ and video games in the earlier 2000s. And Tim Fowler, who's known for hardback, paperback, actually splits his time. He does a lot of video game and board game. So for Alexander Pfister, one of the big people in Euro board gaming, to design a video game, this is exciting news for me. This is a neat little cross pollination.
This is really cool. I'm looking at it right now in the teaser reel that Steam puts up there.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, it's not a graphic adventure kind of, like big graphics and stuff like that. It's kind of like you said, anime kind of style,
It's very
basic
much that
graphics.
JRPG look.
Very cool. Yeah. And what I'm seeing though is that your deck building in, as well as you mentioned that, right? There are cards that are coming out and going into your deck. So the graphics just look like they support the the deck building, I guess, so to speak. Well, the deck building will then push you to do things graphically. I think this is going to be kind of cool to see this. Now, what is his exact he didn't code this. He's not the developer of it. So did he tell them what to do? And then do you have any idea how he
As far as I
interacted?
know, he was game design. I do not think he
Right,
did much on the coding. The coding was done by Magnolia Games.
right.
They're the publisher developer.
Okay, I see. So I can see how this works. So he designed this deck building game. It's called Loop and Deck Building. So he designed this game, and then someone implemented the game, and it really looks
It's
very
pretty cool. I
interesting.
think it's going to hit that market that the virtual card video games have, things like Slay the Spire and Monster Train, and there's a whole list a mile long. Hearthstone is probably the most famous of those.
Yeah, really, a really interesting. It's kind of like a hybrid game, right? In a lot of ways, right? There can be a hybrid game between a board game and a video game. It's kind of what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Corey, next one is also yours. So you have Hanami Designer teams up with co-founder of Seven Wonders Studio to create a new publisher. Is that what this is?
Yes. So I've known about this news for a long time, and I think there's never been an official press release on it because they didn't have games to announce yet. But this is a new company called Playpunk, and it is a joint effort between Antoine Bauza and Thomas Provost. Bauza, of course, is the designer of so many different games, Seven Wonders, all those. And Provost is one of the co-founders of Repos Studios. So Playpunk was tweeted out recently, and uh, I'm just really excited about what's going to happen. Bowser, of course, has been instrumental in so many different companies. His I'm having a complete mind blank, but Bowser was so involved in Takedo and
Mm-hmm.
with all of those. So Takinoko, he's just done so much for the game industry as a whole. So uh, it says Antoine Bauza and Thomas Provost, two veterans of board game industry, joined forces to create Playpunk. Um, on the strength of their long collaboration, they've decided to set up a new publishing company together based on their solid experience and shared vision of the publishing profession. So I don't see any game names coming out yet, but this is just a dream team.
I did
Oh,
find a
at
couple
the
of games.
bottom,
I
yep,
found a couple of
the
games.
first Captain
One,
Flip by
right?
Paolo Mori and Remo Kanzadori. Now, Paolo Mori is one of my favorite designers as well. So this is another piece that just is exciting. Libertalia is such a fantastic game,
Mm-hmm.
and Ethnos from Paolo Mori just got a redo as Archaeos Society. So the new game, Captain Flip, is a devilishly clever family game for 2 to 5 players. Will hit stores in the first quarter of 2024. Then the second is an expert game for 2 or 4 players by Gregory Gerard and Matthew Rousseau, and it'll be released at Essen 2024. No further details on that one.
Very, very cool. So we're gonna now leave a couple of things for next week, and we're gonna get to strategy and tactics. All right. So remember, everybody, we have this contest running. I'm going to post over the next couple of weeks the end of this contest. So
There
essentially,
you go.
you have, let's say, 1 to 2 to 3 max weeks. Because I'm not sure we're going to be recording next week due to the traveling and stuff. So we'll see about that. But we're going to close this contest. And remember, what is this contest? If you can post up to 3 questions in our guild, where we take the questions for strategy and tactics, it's obviously there. Go to our guild on Board Game Geek, look for that thread. It's always right at the top, and post up to 3 questions in 3 separate posts. And you can win either a game from Portal Games' catalog, 2 of those, 1 to US, 1 elsewhere, a piece of merchandise from the Podfather merchandise line, like this very cool shirt here, 1 US, 1 elsewhere, a similar piece of merchandise from the Corey Chorus merchandise line, 1 US, 1 elsewhere. And thanks to Mark Spector of the Grand Gamers Guild, he's going to give us all 7 of his titles in the Holiday Hijinks line, 1 for US, 1 for
fantastic
elsewhere.
micro deck line of escape room games. They are so fun.
Yeah, and really great. Thank you, Mark, for doing that. Not only does he do this line of games, he also has hit games like Endeavor, Artemis, and all of these micro games, which are just really, really cool. First question from a longtime listener, Kirk W., who's at the Corset Maker on the Geek. In playtesting 265, you asked how long. You asked, did we ask? Maybe we did ask. How long before they are in stores should a game company hype a new game?
I remember talking about that.
Yes, we did. My question is all about this word hype. I find that some people use this word for any type of promotion. For the majority of my life experience, however, I have almost exclusively seen this word used with a more pejorative sense, as in excess, false, or misleading promotion. And personally, I have only used this word to indicate marketing practices that are excessive smoke and mirrors for a thoroughly substandard product. I even took, okay, as several people who are well-versed in marketing in the board game world, what does this word mean to you, Corey and Stephen? Or would you embrace its use for your own products? So
that's really interesting. And I remember years ago, hype having a negative connotation like that. But I would say within the past 10 years, especially in the industry, I think that negative connotation has pretty much gone away. Hype is a necessary part of the industry. And hyping just to me means giving a lot of details out there and getting the community excited about a product. And the focus is about the excitement and not about the product. So I can see where that could be used in stranger ways, but more nefarious ways. But I don't think of it that way. I think of hype as just the process of generating excitement.
100% agree with that statement. It is the process of generating excitement. And I'd like to believe that as we do that, I mean, me as a former publisher, you, Corey, in the above board world now, we believe in these products. It's not like, oh, we're going to put out some piece of crap and, we're going to fool you guys into thinking that we're doing good, but we're spreading magical things into your mind. No, we believe in what we do. And that belief leads us to want to share it with you. And in an extraordinarily crowded market of everything, in Corey's case, in content, in my case as publisher, in games, we need to raise it above. So we spread the excitement. So no, I don't use it in a negative way. Of course, any given person out there has got to listen and then either put it to the side or say, whoa, this is something I want to follow and continue going.
Yeah, and that was one of the interesting things I found in the board game industry is, in general, publishers, when they had a game that they were generating excitement about, they were truly excited about the game. These publishers shopped for games. They picked the ones they loved, and they were genuinely excited about them. So I've very rarely found a false sense of excitement in advertising and hype generation in the board game industry.
Very cool. So Mario Sosa, he actually made me make sure I pronounced his name right as well. He asked a question several episodes back. Excuse me. And he says, thanks for answering my questions, but I'd like to rephrase the original so that it makes more sense and have you answer again if that's okay. Sure, why not? And the question is, how would you educate gamers that a game takes more than 12 months to go from idea on paper to final product? how do you make them see that a game usually is 3 or 4 years in the making before it gets to their hands? So, Corey.
That's a great question. And I've thought about this a lot. I mean, you just say it. I mean, that's the first and foremost is you just tell people. And a lot of times people are surprised. But I also think it would be really interesting to follow a specific game from beginning to end and just talk about it. The problem there is if you start from the very beginning with a game, it might not go anywhere. It might not ever get picked up. It might not ever develop. So it could be, a failed effort from the beginning. But it would be really cool. The closest I've seen to this is on BGG. A lot of times they'll post the designer diaries and they'll talk about the process of making the game. But often even that it starts their story late in the process. But that's a fantastic idea. I'd love to do some of that for Dice Tower Now or something like that.
So the first thing I'll say is that the way we can educate gamers about how long it takes to make a game and the process of making a game is to you guys listening to this podcast, right? This is what we talk about. This is what we're trying to demystify things. We're trying to either open the kimono, a little creepy, or unravel the onion. We'll say unravel.
Never heard that
and
phrase.
If you never heard that,
disturbed now. No.
And if you would be watching this, you'll see me like opening my kimono here as I do this. So I'm doing it with a shirt on, so I'm not really opening it. Anyway, and you made a very good point there, Corey, that most games, I would say, not even, so many games that are envisioned never see the light of day. So because game designers are prolific in their minds, at least, and they'll throw something on a piece of paper, and that's all. And that's all happens because it didn't really work out. And they'll either throw it in the garbage or they'll throw it on a shelf for later. Or they put it on a piece of paper and then they start to do some design and stuff, and then it doesn't come out again. So there's so many of these potential scenarios that can happen. So from literally the average game, and that's really hard because what is an average game? An average game could be, is it a 15-minute game or is it a 3.5, 4-hour game, right? This big spectrum. Yeah. From the initial idea that came out of a designer's head until that thing is on a store shelf, sure, I probably would say 3 to 4 years, just like Mario said.
Yeah. But it could be decades.
It absolutely could be. Or it could actually be at the absolute fastest. It could be 6 months. But that would have to be a relatively small game that came out, got pitched, or was designed in-house, boom, and then immediately started going directly to graphic design, layout, and to production. So the 6 months is the absolute crazy minimum, and then it could be a decade. But doesn't happen like that often.
And that's just that small side of it. From the game being signed from a publisher to ending up in the store, I would say a year minimum. I think.
Oh, sure.
I don't know about 6 months.
I've seen it happen. It is an outlier, but so are decades, right? Also, to say a game took decades to come out is also an outlier. So you throw those out and say average,
No,
3 to 4 years. That's probably right.
It should be better documented. I totally agree.
Wait till you see the designer diary, assuming we actually get, Jeff and I actually have our game published. We have some.
You've made a game?
The hype train, man. The hype train. So we tie back into our former discussion. Anyway, Valentine Cretin, who's at Kuntz, Kuntz. Stupid question incoming. There are no stupid questions, Valentine.
I love stupid questions.
The latest release of Azul Master Chocolatier got me thinking, why is it not edible? Of course.
I thought the same thing. I totally thought the same thing.
Of course, there are many reasons why it could not be. But what are the reasons? Let's say I want to create an edible legacy game where you eat some components or open envelopes containing the ingredients to make new components yourself. Wow. Like those candy making contraptions.
Yes.
So I mean, let me finish this because it's a lot of really weird things he's putting in, which are really interesting, like those candy making contraptions.
I love
Also,
those.
let's also suppose those ingredients have an unlimited shelf life, like honey. You could easily get FDA approval and such. Easy is interesting, but okay. What do you think?
FDA does not say honey has unlimited shelf life, but
What do you think are the major issues with such a product? The legal aspect, the production aspect, the financial aspect, the public reception, the marketing, the play only once and then buy recharge packs aspect. Let's hear what you think of such a crazy project. Let me give you
please,
one thing.
you start.
Let me just talk this little thing. So, Valentine, there are enough people out there that refuse to play legacy games because they have to destroy things. And I know a lot of people who physically cannot play it because of their OCD or ADHD. Well, actually, he's raising his hand. You're
I
ridiculous.
play them, but I put the pieces aside in a
Well,
bag.
I
I
do
do
that too,
not
and that's
destroy
okay.
them.
Because then you have a memory of what you did. I'll rip a card, or excuse me, I'll 3/4 rip a card, and I throw it into a little bag. I did this at Gloomhaven all the time. So there are enough people have problems playing legacy games that they're going to destroy. They're going to eat their game. Sadly, while a genius idea, there is a very it's the knife's edge between genius and insanity.
But
So this
would
is
that
genius and
make
insanity
them
together.
would that make them more likely to accept the destruction of a game or less likely? I
Well,
think more likely.
we have to eat. So.
And I think the manufacture and selling is not a problem. I think that you just sell it as food. You sell, and that's easy. They've actually done it. There's a chocolate Catan edition that is completely made of chocolate and edible.
Yes.
Uh, Someone just needs to do it. I think it's brilliant to
Yeah.
make it a legacy game. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Of course, one unfortunate trip in the sun and your legacy game is gone.
Well, you couldn't you wouldn't want to use chocolate pieces in it. And it literally almost would have to be a cooking kit on some level where with all dry
I
ingredients,
love
right?
all
I
those
mean,
ideas, though.
I mean, it's look, let's face it. We are not in the business of making food, and to do such a thing we'd have to be in that business
Or
and
pair with
sell it
somebody. Yeah.
through new channels. And is it possible? Sure. Like that you pointed out, there is one. I think maybe there is more than one, but
There
there
might be
was a
more,
chocolate
but
Catan, right? And it was
yeah.
but I guess you did it come with cards? Did you actually play it, or was it just the board? Do you remember?
You could play it, but it was like square chocolate pieces that were labeled to be elements in the game, and you could play the game with these components. I'll be honest, I ate it more than I played it.
It's so
It was good chocolate. It was German.
Valentine, fantastic idea, but I don't think this is going to see the light of day, sadly. You know, we've gone pretty long here. I think we're going to move on if that's okay. I'm putting a little note there that we have to move on, and now let's get over to playtesting. So, Corey, it was your question last week, so you can read it again.
So my brilliant question.
Do you remember it? It's right there in the show notes. I'll help you there if you like.
Can I read it? So
Yes, please read it, and then
so
we'll take.
last time we talked a long time about Disney Lorcana and the lawsuit that Upper Deck put against Disney Lorcana. And the question was, does the news of an impending lawsuit between Upper Deck versus Ryan Miller and Ravensburger influence you at all? So the question itself had two pieces to it. It's, are you excited about Disney Lorcana, and does the lawsuit change your excitement about Disney Lorcana?
Right. And we got a fair number, 20 or so responses to this one. Let me pick a couple that I like. Josh Wasser, he said, if my daughter is interested, I'll pick up a little so I can try it out. It's unlikely to make any appearance with my adult gamer groups. I'd really prefer to get either of my kids to get interested in Keyforge, or possibly the One Piece CCG. I'm not familiar with that one.
One
Um,
Piece is really popular Japanese animation. It's nice.
Cool. I was taken aback by the lawsuit, but it's unlikely that it'll influence whether or not we buy it. The Watsy Garfield lawsuit didn't stop us from buying Blood Wars, Vampire the Eternal Struggle, Decipher, Star Wars CCG, Marvel Overpower, or Werewolf CCG, so I doubt this will have any impact. I don't remember. It's funny. I don't remember. This must have been a really long, this was definitely a long time
I don't
ago.
remember that story, but I know those titles are older.
No, but you're right. Right. They're very old. Watsy and Richard Garfield obviously had a lawsuit that got obviously settled. And these are very old, like Vampire Eternal Struggle, one of my absolute favorite CCGs. Interesting. Let me see what else I have here. Valentine. We had twice in the same
Yeah.
episode. Very big listener of ours. He goes, you know what? I have negative interest in this game, but I'd like to get a starting pack, keep it in shrink, and see where it stands in value in 20 years just for the experiment
And
alone.
that's a totally separate question. Is there's so much, and I'm going to use the word again, hype around Lorcana at this point. I'm wondering how many people are going to purchase it, keep it in shrink, and just try to see if it becomes an investment. But I'll tell you what really surprised me is the overwhelming majority of answers were no. We're not planning on buying Lorcana, and the lawsuit doesn't affect that decision. I was surprised
Yeah.
by that
Well,
because
I'm not surprised by the latter portion. I didn't. Yeah, I mean, a lawsuit's a lawsuit. The
yeah,
game is a game. You know, I don't think anybody. Well, there could be bad things at work. So I won't state it that way. But I think people are going to ignore that. It's almost more hype for the game, that lawsuit, right? But so they're going to buy it or not. But your point that almost every person is saying, I'm not buying it, or I'll buy a pack from maybe my kids, or they're not interested in the game. I
that
think this
that was
entire concept
fascinating.
here, this entire idea of this game, and what we're showing here is that this game is not for our core market, ours, as in board
That's what I was going
gamers
to
in
say
the
is we
hobby.
are very niche, especially Board Games Insider crowd is a niche of a niche. So we are about as far removed from the hobby market, CCG Disneyana market as gamers are likely to get.
So I am now supposed to give a question, but Corey, you'll notice in the show notes that I don't have a question there. It's supposed to be
I
my question.
have done the last minute question
Yes.
on the
Eh,
last, what, three shows?
Okay. So I will now put the last minute question in. I will be using the inspiration of
Please,
Valentine again. Valentine's the third
please
time that we're calling upon you.
show us your brilliance, Master Bonacor.
So I'm going to have to formulate this and then ask you to answer so I can actually type it correctly and then put it up there. But here's my general like question, and I will make it sound better after I do it. It's like when Ignacy puts a question here, I got to completely change it the English, but that makes sense. I have to do
Well, I
this.
mean, your English is second language as well. So
I speak Brooklynese. Let's not,
you
you
do,
know.
you
Are
do.
you really going to go there? Okay. So here's my question. If a publisher brought out a fully edible board game that actually played well, but it was only playable, of course, one time, and then it was gone, would you buy it? We're going to make the assumption that this is a good, people are saying it's a good game, and you then are going to play it one time for whatever, let's say it's your whatever your favorite game length is. Play it
Sure.
one time, game over, done. Would you buy it? Corey, give me your answer while I type this in.
Yes.
Come on, give me a better
So
answer.
I am not a good target for this because I know full well and have come to the realization that I do play games once or twice and that's it. So it doesn't shock me if I hear there's a game that I only can play one time. I'm good with that. I assume that with a lot of my games already. And I am not the most picky of board game buyers. I tend to get a lot of games and enjoy a lot of games. So it would not stop me in the least little bit to purchase a game, usable once, play it, gone, dead.
I probably should add into this, and was a reasonable price point.
I was going to say a price
Have a
point
good.
probably, yeah. If it's $100 game, I think you're going to get a very different answer than if it's a $15 game.
I'm going to say a reasonable price point. Okay. That's very different for many people. Like I would say $50, right? Because you're at the dinner, right? The couple goes out to dinner. It's going to cost you about $50 at least these days. Even without drinks, you get the two entrees and an app.
Well, think about a movie. A movie is essentially a
yeah.
one use, and you can see movies multiple times, but you're going to have to buy it each time.
Right. Well, right. Or you go to the movies and it costs you that, buy popcorn and a soda and that, and you see it once and it's in your memory. Wow, that was great. I just saw, right. I just saw, what did I just see? I just saw something and I can't remember it. So yeah, it didn't even make a great effect on me. But, so I think my answer to this question is giving the assumptions. It's a good game, plays in my favorite game length, and it's a reasonable price point. I would 100% buy it. And because, first of all, it's going to be so novel, right, that nobody else in the world would have done this.
So now, I'll also put in there, edible is a very broad term. So if this is a game completely made out of some food I find repulsive, I don't know. But we're going to assume this is candy or something delicious or generally something that, you
fully edible and tasty. Oh, my God.
I know, I keep putting in little extras for you.
It's funny. Well, what do you guys think about this? In a moment, I will be putting this into the guild for you to answer to us. So please go to our guild on BGG and find our play testing thread for this question and post your answer to it. And then we'll read some of your answers next time. In the meantime, the final scoring. Thank you so much for listening. Help us spread the word about this podcast by telling your friends to download Board Games Insider wherever they like to get their podcasts, or please watch Board Games Insider on the Podfather Gaming YouTube channel, which, by the way, by the time this podcast comes out, I will have gone over the milestone of 1,000 subscribers. I'm at literally 998, which I know compared to Vassal and the Dice Tower, which have 30,000, 300,000, whatever that number is, really big number, 300,000 is not a lot. But that's kind of cool that, I've hit 1,000 subscribers. Thank you all for subscribing, and I hope you continue, because I'm going to have some really good content coming out, including exclusive stuff, which is kind of my forte because of people I know. Anyway, to continue, do you want to be part of the podcast? You can just ask us questions for our strategy and tactics segment by posting them in the correct thread in our guild on Board Game Geek. And the contest, you will possibly win something, and also answer our delicious question from our play testing segment by going to the guild on Board Game Geek, looking for the thread with this episode's question. Check out our websites, portalgamesus.com, podfathergaming.com, dicetowerdish.com. We're all over social media. Interact with us and like our pages /BoardGamesInsider /PortalGamesUS /PodfatherGaming. Speak directly to Ignacy, Corey, and Steven, Twitter and Instagram @PortalGamesUS, @PodfatherGaming, @DicetowerDish, @DicetowerNow, and the very active YouTube channels are Portal Games Movies, the Podfather of Gaming, and Above Board TV. Ignacy is on Twitter, Portal Games US. We can't wait to see you at an upcoming convention. And the two that are really the three that are closest, though the Origins will be over by then. Hopefully you'll see Corey at Origins. Have seen him. Hopefully I'll see some of you BGG at Sea, Alaska Week 1, and then Dice Tower East conventions. And then the upcoming, of course, would be the WBC and Gen Con later in July. Board Games Insider, professionally edited by Matthew. Again, I say, can't get Matthew out of my head. It says it right there. I read it as Matthew. Joshua Bowman from Tabletop Submarine. Joshua, I owe you extra for this. Matthew Jude is an amazing guy, and he did it for years. It is Joshua Bowman, and he rocks Tabletop Submarine. Check out his podcast, too. And if you want him to edit your podcast, reach out to him on Tabletop Submarine gmail.com. And that great voice you hear, intro, outro, and in between segments is that of Ray Greenlee. He can be contacted to do voiceover work at raygreenleevoiceover.com. Corey, anything special? I'm going to repeat something that I said already, but anything special you
No,
want to?
you
Okay.
go. Everything I do is special.
That is
So
true. That
you
your
go.
presence here has made this special. I I kind of mean that, which is that's I don't know. I should not
Ah,
stroke your ego that heavily, but
no,
you
no, no.
you've been
I'm gonna
great for the
start
podcast.
demanding money here.
You have been great for the podcast. I will admit this to you, and people keep telling me that too. So thank you for
No,
doing
I
this.
enjoy it. It is so fun.
Good, and gooder. Board Games Insider Meetup, Dice Tower East, Saturday, July 8th at noon. Pizza, beer, soda, water, all compliments of me. Ignacy doesn't even chip in, but it's okay. He's like coming all the way from Poland. So it's really cool. I really hope to see lots of you people there. And please, if you can, come on Saturday at noon and hang out. And maybe we'll play Crokinole as we have in the past. If someone lets us take it out of the library, which he may or may not. But we'll see. I'll see you guys there. Thank everybody for listening. It's a pleasure. We'll see you again soon.
See you, everybody.